Hey, Bitcoin wealth builders. Welcome to episode 96 of Bitcoin Hard Talk. So we took a little break from the usual format last week because it was getting absolute carnage across England and there were mass shootings in the US. And I wanted to pull it all together to help you understand the operations ahead so that we can track them in real time. And September the 13th is the operation that is being engineered for civil unrest in the UK. If you didn't get an opportunity to watch last week's episode, please go back to it. It is really important that you understand what is happening so that you can prepare and get ahead. Now, we're back to the usual format today, and we're going to be discussing the brand new Shanghai proof of weapons network that was launched, really, to be what I consider America's turning point. I think this is going to be a real turning point, and the media really tried to underplay it and make sure that no one in the Western media was aware of what was happening. But don't worry, we got you covered. We're going to be covering everything that you need to know about it. And it was unveiled at the SEO meeting. If you haven't heard of the SEO meeting, that is by design. You're not meant to have heard of it. But we're going to make sure on Bitcoin Hard Talk you're aware of it, because now that we have more than one proof of weapons network, we needed to understand the rules, because the rules of the China proof of weapons network is very different to the privately controlled proof of weapons network in the US. We're going to be diving into all of that. So we're going to be doing it in three parts as usual. We're going to be doing This Week in Bitcoin, This Week in Macro, and This Week in Geopolitics. If you're new to the show and we have not met already, we've got over 101,000 subscribers now, and we're trying to get to 102,000. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell symbol, hit all. I want to prepare you for a world of Bitcoin, AI, and central bank digital currencies. I spent the last 25 years of my life obsessing over the topic of investing and money, and 14 years as an early investor in Bitcoin at $3. Wrote the first published book in the world to include Bitcoin, and invested in over 100 companies in the sector, as well as speaking at the first Bitcoin conference in Prague. But Bitcoin is way more than just Bitcoin. It is a resistance, and it is the ability to protect yourself and boycott the proof of weapons network. So this week in Bitcoin, what are we going to be going on? This was actually a popular request. So on top of everything that happened this week in Bitcoin, I'm going to be covering the Bitcoin core versus the knots. I guess you could call it a civil war. It's a bit of a geeky topic, but I've had lots of requests to cover this because if you were not a part of the Bitcoin block size war that culminated in the 2017 hard fork, then you may be new to this. I'll give you my opinion on what's happening, as well as everything that happened this week in Bitcoin. In part two, we'll be covering This Week in Macro. And the main topic is going to be how the new Shanghai proof of weapons network threatens dollar domination at the moment. And it won't be done with the BRICS currency, spoiler alert, but it will be done with a proof of weapons network. So we'll be covering that. And in part three, This Week in Geopolitics, we'll be covering and analyzing the shocking, disgusting, makes you want to puke, leaked Tony Blair and a Trump plan of how they want to rebuild Gaza. And remember what I said. I said what happens in Gaza is a beta for what they want to do in UK after a civil unrest campaign, so they can roll it out over the European Union and bring it to America. And civil unrest, mass deportations, border control, border and open policies was the strategy to get here. So we'll be giving an update on all of that.
Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a really big topic, the emergence of what one analysis calls the Shanghai Proof of Weapons Network, and, well, its huge global implications.
Yeah, it's a hefty one.
We're diving into a recent and frankly sprawling analysis from Bitcoin OG Simon Dixon. His Bitcoin Hard Talk episode 96 just dropped on Friday, September 5th, 2025.
That's the one, titled Why the New Shanghai Proof of Weapons Network Marks America's Turning Point.
Right, and the original session wasn't short, was it?
Not at all. There's a detailed blog post, plus the audio itself is over 3 hours long. It really digs deep into Bitcoin, macroeconomics, geopolitics, the whole lot.
Exactly. So we know your time is valuable. Think of this as your shortcut.
Yeah, your essential guide. We've tried to pull out the absolute must-know insights. You get the core ideas without needing to block out your whole afternoon.
Okay, so let's get into it. Our mission here is to navigate these pretty complex shifts Simon Dixon lays out, grab the key nuggets, and help you figure out what it might mean for you.
Sounds good. Where should we start? Bitcoin.
Let's jump straight into the Bitcoin space. The analysis points to some, well, fascinating and maybe concerning things happening there, stuff that directly impacts decentralization and, your financial sovereignty.
Yeah, what's really interesting, according to the analysis, is this ongoing civil war between Bitcoin Core and knots. Now, that might sound super technical.
Geeky, yeah.
Right, but the implications are pretty fundamental. If you remember the block size debates back in 2017, this is kind of a new chapter.
So knots, that's the alternative software by Luke Dash Jr.
Exactly. And it's apparently gained about 17% adoption. So it's not insignificant. It's a real competitor to Bitcoin Core now.
Okay, so this spam war, or node war, as the analysis calls it, what's actually being fought over?
It really boils down to how much data you can stuff into a Bitcoin block. Right now, Bitcoin has filters. They block really big data payloads, usually under 100 kilobytes.
Which allows for small things like images or records.
Right, small bits of data to create an immutable record. But the analysis highlights that public companies, miners like Marathon Digital, they're getting worried.
Worried about what?
About illicit images or illegal content potentially ending up stored on their nodes. They see big legal and reputational risks there.
Okay.
So some Bitcoin Core developers are apparently proposing to significantly raise this filter limit, potentially allowing much, much larger data chunks.
And the concern there, according to Dixon, what does that mean for the average user or node runner?
Well, the worry is it could lead to people running nodes finding themselves storing what the analysis calls toxic digital waste.
He's facing legal trouble for it.
Potentially, yeah. Legal liability. And if that happens, it might discourage people from running nodes altogether, which theoretically could hit decentralization. The analysis basically says this is playing with fire and actually recommends people consider running knots instead.
Interesting. Okay, meanwhile, you've got Wall Street making moves. The analysis points out public companies now own 1 million Bitcoin.
Yeah, 1 million, which is apparently getting close to what Satoshi Nakamoto is estimated to hold.
Wow. That's, what, 1 in every 20 Bitcoin that will ever exist?
Something like that, yeah. And you see companies like Sequoia raising hundreds of millions, Nakamoto planning a massive $5 billion equity offering, all to buy more Bitcoin.
So the analysis sees this creating a kind of split.
Exactly. A two-tier Bitcoin world. That's the phrase used. Tier 1 is Wall Street controlling Bitcoin through company treasuries, custody, loans, ETFs, that sort of thing.
And Tier 2?
Tier 2 is where the analysis encourages you to be. Sovereign Bitcoin, meaning your own money in your own self-custody wallet.
Making you immune from the banksters, as the analysis puts it.
Right, and allowing you to, quote, boycott the proof of weapons network. We'll definitely circle back to what that means.
Okay, yeah. And sticking with crypto, but broadening out stablecoins, Tether launching USDT on Bitcoin using RGB. That sounds significant.
It is, potentially. RGB technology allows for things like stablecoins directly on Bitcoin, maybe with more privacy. So you could hold digital dollars right alongside your Bitcoin in the same wallet.
Which then ties into the banks. Why are they lobbying against stablecoins paying yield?
Well, according to the analysis, it's pretty simple. It could create trillions of dollars in deposit outflows from traditional banks.
A direct threat to their business model.
Exactly. Protecting their monopoly in the financial industrial complex, as the analysis frames it.
Makes sense. And globally, nations are shifting too.
Definitely. The report mentions Thailand and Japan apparently looking at Bitcoin for strategic reserves. Bhutan's already mining it with hydropower for sovereignty.
El Salvador is still buying, despite the IMF's pressure.
Right. And maybe most significantly, the UAE confirmed mining over 6,000 Bitcoin via Citadel mining.
Which is controlled by their royal group.
Correct. And that vaults them, according to the analysis, into the 6th largest country holder spot, ahead of El Salvador.
So the Middle East is seriously building Bitcoin reserves.
That's the takeaway from the analysis, yes. A very strategic move.
And finally, on the Bitcoin front, this U.S. announcement. Economic data, like GDP, On a blockchain.
Yeah, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick announced it. But the big question Simon Dixon poses is, which blockchain?
Will it be Bitcoin's immutable proof-of-work chain?
Or, as the analysis rather skeptically puts it, a shitcoin casino like Chainlink?
And the guess is?
The guess in the analysis is the latter, more of a gimmick than real decentralized verification in that view.
Okay, let's pivot then. Let's transition to this week in macro. The analysis here talks about a massive escalation towards a multipolar world.
Yeah, and this is where the Shanghai Proof of Weapons Network concept really comes into play, positioned as a direct threat to dollar dominance.
So the analysis frames the U.S. as the dominant proof of weapons network historically.
Yes, but argues it's become increasingly vassalized, that's the term, used into huge asset managers like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard.
And the Citi deal with BlackRock is seen as evidence of that.
Right. Citi handing over $80 billion in wealth management to BlackRock just gives them even more power, according to this perspective.
Okay, so the SCO Summit, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Why does the analysis call it historic? What actually happened there?
It was the public unveiling, really, of a new system. One designed to be resistant to sanctions, mixing finance, AI, and, crucially, military power.
This is the new Shanghai Proof of Weapons Network.
That's the term Dixon uses, yeah. Describing it as a global alternative where financial and technological independence are enforced by military hardware. Essentially, the SCO building its own infrastructure to challenge Western economic control.
What were the concrete steps they announced?
Several key things highlighted in the analysis. An SCO development bank positioned as a rival to the IMF and World Bank.
Okay.
New payment systems designed to bypass SWIFT. An energy platform for trading oil and gas outside the dollar, which the analysis notes has already cut the petrodollar share down from 100% to about 70%.
Wow, okay.
What else? An AI innovation center. China expanding its Beidou GPS to challenge Google. And Russia even proposed an SKO bond based on local currencies.
A clear move away from the dollar.
Definitely. And India's role here is seen as absolutely critical.
Why is Modi's presence there considered such a big deal in this analysis?
Well, it gives the whole thing global legitimacy. It's not just a Russia-China thing anymore. India brings its huge tech infrastructure, Aadhaar, its own payment network, bypassing Visa, MasterCard.
Allowing it to operate even under sanctions.
That's the argument. Plus, India is defense hedging, buying weapons from both the U.S. and Russian networks, building its own manufacturing, signaling its own move towards multipolar sovereignty.
Then China follows up with a massive military parade. What kind of hardware was shown off?
According to the report, pretty serious stuff. Carrier killer missiles, hypersonics, drone swarms, mystery laser weapons, plus nuclear-capable systems from China, Russia, and North Korea.
A clear show of force.
A very clear message challenging U.S. power, yeah. Solidifying a nuclear-backed military bloc, as the analysis sees it.
So, pulling back, what does this multipolar shift mean for America's traditional power structures? The military, financial consumption, technical industrial complexes, EIC.
The analysis argues it forces a major reckoning. These new currency rails directly challenge Washington's control, especially financial control.
How will they adapt?
The FIIC, the financial complex, will likely adapt, create BRICS, ETFs, swaps, find ways to trade it. But the CIC, antique consumption, and tech, they'll likely be hit harder, demanding tariffs, subsidies.
And the prediction is BRICS won't create a single currency like the euro.
Right. The analysis suggests they learned from the EU struggles. Instead, they'll likely use local currency strategically, aiming to weaken the dollar's global standing bit by bit.
Interesting. Okay, closer to home, U.S. economy. Unemployment data being used to push for a Fed rate cut, even with inflation rising.
That's the interpretation in the analysis, yes. A move potentially influenced by figures like Trump aiming to run the economy hot, pump up assets.
Which widens that K-shaped recovery gap.
Exactly. It further exacerbates the K-shaped economy and wealth inequality, according to the report. It's described as a fiscal dominant strategy that's inherently inflationary.
And the U.S.-India trade war escalating is seen as part of this.
Controversially, yes. The analysis suggests it might have been engineered to push India closer to China and the BRICS bloc, a provocative claim.
Definitely. What about the UK situation? The analysis sounds pretty grim there.
It does. It paints a picture of the UK heading for a financial crisis. Points to 30-year bond yields hitting 1998 highs, debt projected to soar to 274% of GDP by 2073, inflation stuck above 4%.
Stagnation, basically. Stagflation.
Yeah, pointing towards stagflation. and potentially leading to calls for an IMF bailout.
Which would come with strings attached?
Harsh austerity and, in the analysis's view, further vassalization to U.S. companies.
Wow. And globally, central banks are dumping dollars for gold.
At unprecedented rates, according to the analysis. Gold now makes up 27% of total foreign reserves, the highest in 29 years, and foreign holdings of U.S. treasuries, lowest since 2008.
A clear trend.
A multi-decade trend, the report notes, but one that really sped up after Russia's assets were frozen in 2022.
And the U.S. is responding by investing in its own companies, like Intel, Fannie Mae.
Kind of mirroring the China model, yeah. Investing strategically to maintain regional power. But the overall picture painted by the analysis is bleak.
Suggesting only hard assets offer an escape.
Pretty much. Only those who own scarce assets like gold and Bitcoin can escape the K-shaped economy, it concludes.
Okay, that leads us to the final section, This Week in Geopolitics. And this focuses on the shocking leaked Tony Blair and Trump plan for Gaza.
Right. And the analysis makes a very strong statement here. This is not just about the Middle East. This is a beta test for global control systems that they want to bring to the West. Again, presenting the analysis's view here, which is quite controversial.
Understood. So the GCC, led by Saudi Arabia, how does the analysis see their role?
As consolidating power, becoming a regional hegemon, negotiating a, quote, strategic exit for the U.S. proof-of-weapons network from the Middle East.
And aligning with BRICS and the Shanghai network.
Yes, aligning practically, not ideologically. And in this new setup, the analysis controversially claims that militants are moving from an asset to a liability.
Which explains the strikes on groups like Houthis and Hezbollah. And pressure on Hamas.
That's the interpretation offered. Moving from war optics, as it says, towards conflict investment and potential normalization.
Stability for rebuilding and investment, AI data centers, Saudi's Project 2030.
That's the idea presented. The proof-of-weapons network, in this view, wants stability for the rebuild. But the analysis makes a very disturbing claim about how that stability is achieved.
Regarding the Gaza conflict itself.
Yes. While calling it a humanitarian crisis and a genocide, the analysis alleges it's being used as an essential prerequisite for this transformation.
How so?
It controversially claims the atrocities were utilized to level everything so the U.S. proof-of-weapons network could profit from the destruction and then finance the rebuild. It cites BlackRock opening offices in Saudi Arabia as linked to this.
And Netanyahu's role in this, according to the analysis.
He's characterized as an operator of the U.S. military-industrial complex who allegedly prolonged the conflict to negotiate his own survival and immunity. And Israel, in this sphere, is shifting from a U.S. colony to a GCC vassal via investment and asset acquisition using IMF-like tactics.
Extremely strong claims.
Very strong. And then comes the leaked Blair-Trump plan, reported by the Washington Post. The analysis calls it a blueprint outlining the psychopathy of these technocratic institutions.
What are the key points of this alleged plan?
According to the AI summary presented in the analysis, U.S.-led multilateral custodianship in Gaza keeping plenary powers, mandatory digital ID systems for everything services, economy with a new AI-powered smart cities,
mandatory digital IDs,
land tokenization, trading physical deeds for digital tokens representing future homes.
Tokenizing land. Wow.
Using manufactured crises like the destruction in Gaza as the justification, the essential prerequisite, and even redesigning cities with wide streets specifically to make surveillance and controlling insurgency easier.
And Trump's reported comments fit this narrative.
The analysis quotes Trump saying, "The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. We'll own it. We're going to take it under the U.S. authority," which Dixon interprets as the demonic plan to profit from stability, replacing forever wars with technocratic control.
Even suggesting they plan to tokenize it into a shitcoin NFT?
That's the extreme claim made in the analysis, yes. A very cynical take.
How is the GCC responding, according to the report?
They're pushing back. The UAE issued a strongest warning to Israel about annexing the West Bank, calling it a red line that would end the Abraham Accords.
Others are condemning settlements, too.
Yeah, 21 countries, including the UK and France. Turkey banned ships and trade with Israel. France plans an embassy in the West Bank and recognition of Palestine.
And then the U.S. removing the visa for the Palestinian UN representative.
The analysis sees that as hugely symbolic.
How so?
It argues the U.S. is essentially losing its right to be an impartial host of the UN, calling it a symbolic fall of an empire, like the shift from Britain to America.
Weakening the dollar's backing, which the analysis claims is
force and destruction, yeah. And that understanding this truth is key.
Okay, So let's try to wrap this up. After going through Simon Dixon's whole analysis, what's the bottom line?
The overwhelming argument presented is that the operating model of the U.S. proof of weapons network involves manufacturing conflict, controlling the resolution, and propping up a dollar-based debt Ponzi scheme.
Arguing the dollar isn't backed by gold or productivity.
But by a global network of violence and debt, that's the core assertion.
And the new Shanghai proof of weapons network
Represents a massive turning point for America, according to Dixon. A direct challenge ushering in a multipolar world that will reshape everything: finance, tech, geopolitics.
A complex, maybe brutal transition.
Definitely presented as complex and often brutal, yes, but also as an opportunity for those who see what's happening.
The analysis presents a stark picture, but suggests there's a way out, a path to protection.
Yeah, it frames it as finding power in the truth. And the only way out, it suggests, is a peaceful boycott.
How does it suggest you do that? Boycott what?
It lays out a few specific actions for individuals. Boycott the Fed with Bitcoin.
Okay.
Boycott BlackRock by holding your assets in self-custody.
Self-custody, right.
Boycott the banks by aiming to be debt-free.
Get out of debt.
And boycott the global corporations by spending locally.
Supporting local economies.
Exactly. Choosing a peaceful, decentralized money system like Bitcoin is presented as how you reclaim sovereignty.
So, own Bitcoin, learn self-custody, maybe run a node.
That's the recommendation, framed as peaceful resistance against a system that profits from carnage.
A powerful message.
It is. And the final advice is always, don't trust, verify. We are living through an incredibly interesting, maybe challenging, but definitely exciting time in financial history.
So the final thought to leave people with, maybe it's this. With these competing global networks, these proof of weapons networks, mixing finance, tech, and military power, how do you, personally, define and secure your own sovereignty in this rapidly changing world?
That's definitely a question worth spending some time thinking about.